Hi guys, it's me, Kari, and I am getting back to a Dicey song. We're going to read some more today because it's been a few weeks. As I told you, I think in the last video, I'm not keeping track of chapters anymore because I generally can't finish a whole chapter before my time runs out. I don't know if this is a YouTube thing or my phone thing. I'm thinking it's a YouTube thing, and I don't know why it is. But when I hit 33 minutes, my video's cut off. And I've seen people, maybe Jen, you can explain this to me if this has something to do with the number of subscribers you have or something. Maybe if you have more subscribers, you can make longer videos. I have no idea. But I find that when I get to 33 minutes on the dot, my videos just stop. And then if I continue longer, it breaks it into a second video, which is super duper annoying. So I don't necessarily read chapters all at once because some are longer and some are shorter and yada, yada, yada. So I'm just picking up at page 70 where I left off, and we're just going to read for like 15, 20 minutes and see where we end up. And I'm just going to label these like part 1, part 2, part 3, you know, as I've been doing. So that way you can watch these. Sorry, my nose is itchy. In chronological order. Okay, that's a minute and a half. Almost gone. Here we go. All right. Don't know what part I was left. So we'll just pick up with the first paragraph that I see. And Sammy's all right, and James is doing well. So what's the problem? Graham waited. Dicey put the straw into her mouth and sipped at her soda. She looked out the window. Walking away from them down the mall were a boy and a girl. They had their arms around one another. The boy's arm was over the girl's shoulder, and his hand was tucked into the rear pocket of her jeans. We read this paragraph already, sorry. They leaned their heads towards one another, talking, as if there was nothing important in the world except what they had to say right then. When I was a girl, Graham said, only engaged couples could spend an afternoon alone together, and even then, the most they would do in public was hold hands. People say things were easier then, and maybe they were. Dicey followed the couple with her eyes. She didn't know why Graham was talking like this, but she was interested in what Graham would say about what it was like when she was young. Things were surely simpler, but I guess we made them hard because I don't remember anything simple or easy about it. I'd be inclined to think things are easier now, wouldn't you? Dicey looked back but didn't answer. I didn't say better, just easier, Graham told her. Dicey nodded to show she was listening, but she was wondering how long was she going to have to spend worrying about her brothers and sisters. It's for as long as you live, Graham said, as if Dicey had spoken aloud. That's something I learned, even though I didn't want to. For as long as you live, the attachments hold. At that moment, their sandwiches were put down in front of them. Dicey looked at hers, 4 triangles of toast layered with turkey and bacon, lettuce and tomato, like rocks strata on cliffs. A pile of potato chips was in the center of the plate. Graham passed her a little glass of mayonnaise. So you've got to think, Graham said, and I'd be grateful if you'd tell me what you think. Reluctantly, Dicey agreed. Well, Graham was right. She'd had a nice long rest from it, longer than she could ever remember before in her life. And she couldn't fool herself that her family didn't matter to her. She took a bite. Okay, she said. I think I know about James. But Graham, the sandwich is good. I told you, didn't I? Graham answered, pleased with herself. James never had friends. None of us did, really, on account of Mama and where we lived and a whole lot of other things. But James always wanted them. I think if he wrote another report, he did it because he didn't want to be too different. Because if you're too different, people don't like you. But is he making friends? I don't know, Dicey said. I never asked. He told me the kids liked his report. The trouble is, she went on, that if James doesn't have something to think about, he gets bored. And because he doesn't like working the way I do, not physical work, working with his mind, that's what James likes. So he needs to do a lot of thinking in school. Which he won't, because then he'd be too different, Graham pointed out. So he will have to find something to think about at home. He reads those books, Dicey said. Your grandfather read books at home alone. Was he like James? Is James like him? Graham didn't answer. I don't know what to do, she said finally. Neither did Dicey. And what about Sammy? Graham demanded. He's just trying to be good. I appreciate that, Graham declared. But he isn't good. You know, not the way she thinks he is. He isn't her idea of good, but he's trying to be that. She said he sits quiet as a mouse all day. It's no wonder he's got so much energy to burn off when he gets home. Did you ever think of that? Dicey hadn't. Well, think about it, Graham said. See if you find it a pleasant thought. No, Dicey said, her voice low. I don't. But Graham, if he wants to be the kind of boy she likes, it's for you, and for me, for all of us. Graham nodded grimly. She had finished her sandwich, and she had poured out a cup of tea. Dicey had a picture in her head of Sammy putting on a mask every morning to wear all day long. It was a heavy iron mask, and he pulled it around his own face and bolted it closed. If I was just in the same school, Dicey wished. But you're not, Graham answered. Do you remember when you were little in school? Not much. I got in trouble for fighting. What stopped you? The other kids learned to steer clear. Graham stared at Dicey for a minute, and her eyes snapped as if she was either angry or trying not to laugh. But what were you fighting about? Dicey made herself meet Graham's dark hazel eyes. They'd say things about Mama, about our father being gone, about our not having his name. I can guess, Graham cut her off. Sometimes they'd laugh at me. I don't know why. I didn't like that. But Sammy doesn't mind being laughed at. He likes being a clown. Not the Sammy that woman's got sitting in her class. That Sammy? I don't know. He's not at all like our Sammy. Not the good ways or the bad ways, Dicey realized. But what can we do? That's what I thought we could talk about. That and Maybeth. Does she have to go to school? You know better than that, girl. Be sensible. The waitress came and took their plates away. She asked did they want some dessert. Graham said no thank you, and the waitress went away. Dicey leaned her elbows on the table. She didn't know what Graham was going to think of, what she was going to say next. I don't think Maybeth is learning anything, she said. I agree, Graham said. When I was explaining fractions, she didn't learn anything, Dicey said. But I had the feeling if I could do it a different way, then she would. She stopped. Go on, keep telling me, Graham urged. Well, I wonder, those lists of words she's supposed to memorize? I don't think she can learn them. Graham was watching her so hard, Dicey felt like she was sitting too close to the fire. So if she has a school tutor, wouldn't she teach Maybeth the same way, she concluded? Graham leaned back and smiled. Exactly. I just wanted to see if I was the only one thinking that. Sometimes I get crazy ideas and I know how stubborn I am. But we can't afford another tutor, can we? Dicey asked. Because she shouldn't give up her piano lessons. Because I won't let you do that. Who said I wanted to do that? Graham demanded. Give me some credit, girl. What did your mama do about Maybeth? She'd pretend it wasn't happening. Graham thought about that. Now we know two ways that don't work, she said finally. Dicey giggled. Graham gave Dicey one of her sudden smiles. We should have had James along, Dicey said. He's the one with the ideas. I needed just you for this today, Graham said. We'll confer with James when we get home. But I wanted... Besides, we never get to talk much, do we? You've kept pretty busy, Dicey said, excusing her grandmother. And I haven't been much help to you, she admitted. Well, I'll tell you, Dicey, I'd be happy not to bother you with this. You've already done a lot for your brothers and sister. I don't say that to you, but I think it. Dicey felt her face grow hot, and she looked down at her glass. She stirred the ice cubes around with her straw. What was she supposed to say? Nothing, apparently, because Graham went right on. But I'll tell you something else, too. Something I've learned the hard way. I guess, Graham laughed a little. I'm the kind of person who has to learn the hard way. You've got to hold on. Hold on to people. They can get away from you. It's not always going to be fun, but if you don't hold on, then you lose them. Now, let's get going. Dicey wanted to stay then and asked Graham what she meant. Not about holding on, because Dicey could figure that out, but what she meant to be saying about herself. Did Graham wish she had held on to her own children? To Bullet and Mama? Did Graham think that would have made any difference to Mom up in that hospital or Bullet dead in Vietnam? And what about her son John, whoever he was, wherever he was? But Graham wasn't waiting for any questions. She was walking on out to pay the bill. Dicey gathered up the bags and followed. She thought Graham would go back to the bus stop then, but instead her grandmother went along the fancy department store, past purses and hats, past sweaters, past racks of dresses and mannequins leaning over in impossible poses. She went right into an area where nightgowns and robes hung out, and slips and bras and underpants and girdles. She went right up to a counter and turned, waiting for Dicey to join her. A saleslady came over, her hair brushed high and wavy and held in place by spray so thick it glistened. May I help you? My granddaughter needs a bra, Graham said. Dicey looked away. She looked back at Graham, angry. She looked at the saleslady who was staring at her. She glared at Graham. This was a trick, a rotten trick. The saleslady took out a tape measure and measured Dicey. She made clicking noises. Dicey raised her chin, ignoring the woman. Graham pretended to be looking into a counter, but since the counter was filled with thick girdles laid out like the steaks in Millie's store, Dicey knew Graham was just pretending. She tried to think of how to get out of the situation. She could run away, she supposed, but she didn't have any money with her, and how would she get home? She could start a fight with Graham right here, but Graham wasn't enjoying this any more than Dicey was. Dicey could tell that by the way she was pretending to be especially interested in a girdle that was black and lacy that hooked up the front from your hips to your bosom. The saleslady brought out a handful of bras and asked them to step back to the dressing room to try them on. Graham wanted to refuse. Dicey saw that as clear as day. "I'll wait here," Graham said. Dicey felt mean. "You better come with me," she said. Graham's chin went up, and she came along. If Dicey hadn't been so uncomfortable herself, she would have laughed. They brought 3 bras, 3 little scraps of nylon at $4 each. Dicey, who agreed to keep one on since it was either that or have a fight with both Graham and the saleslady at the same time, figured it served Graham right. If she was going to insist that Dicey wear a bra, then Dicey wasn't going to feel sorry at how much money it cost. If Dicey was going to have to go around feeling like a dog with a collar on, Graham could just pay for it, and Dicey wasn't going to apologize. They left the lingerie department silently. Then Graham led Dicey up the escalator to the 2nd floor. Dicey followed without any questions. Let Graham be angry with her. She didn't care after that trick. Graham went into the girls' section where the mannequins were of teenagers wearing slacks or party dresses. They were in the same poses as the mannequins for ladies, which Dicey thought was pretty stupid. The dresses were pretty stupid looking too. The slacks, well, anybody who would pay the price for those when they could just wear jeans was stupid. Graham went over to a rack and pulled out a denim jumper. "Come over here, girl, and put down those packages." She held the jumper up in front of Dicey. It was too short. Yet another saleslady came over and asked if she could help. This one wore loops and loops of necklaces and loops of bracelets. She jingled as she walked. "Try one of these on," Graham instructed Dicey. "We don't know her size," she said to the lady. The lady jingled around to measure Dicey with her eyes. She picked out a jumper and told Dicey to follow her. This time Dicey didn't insist that Graham come too. It was going to be hard to keep on being angry. The dressing room had mirrors and mirrors and mirrors. Dicey looked at herself in her boy's shirt and shorts. She didn't look too terrific. Her sharp face was reflected back to her from all angles, front and sides. She could see herself from the back, her raggedy hair, her old shorts. At least the bra didn't show. The saleslady slipped the jumper over her head and marched Dicey out to show Graham. "Looks all right," Graham said. She had sat down in a chair with something brown laid over the big bags beside her. "Do you like it?" she asked Dicey. "But Graham," she started to protest. "You going to answer my question?" "Yes, of course I do. You know that." Graham grunted. "But Graham..." How could she tell Graham not to spend the money when the saleslady was listening? "I went to your school one day," Graham said. "I saw you," Dicey answered. "I didn't see anybody in shorts," Graham said. "I saw some in jeans, lots in skirts and dresses. I kind of liked the way these jumpers looked. They looked sturdy." Dicey tried to stop the smile that was about to take over her face. She kept her mouth still, but she had the feeling her eyes were giving her away. "Should need a couple pair of those high socks," Graham told the saleslady, "in blue. Will you try this on too?" she asked, holding out the brown thing. It was a dark brown dress made out of some soft material that looked kind of like velvet, but was thicker. The dress had a white knitted collar and matching cuffs. It had a brown belt that went with it. "I don't need a dress," Dicey said. "I just asked you to try it on," Graham insisted. Dicey cooperated, mostly because she wanted to show Graham that she appreciated the jumper. The saleslady hung around while Dicey unbuttoned her shirt, then struggled into the long sleeves. The lady zipped Dicey up the back and watched her put the belt around her waist. "Now that's more like it," the lady said. Dicey looked in the mirrors. The dark brown of the dress was like the soil in Graham's garden, where Sammy had turned it over. The heavy, soft fabric hung close to her body. Her bosom showed a little, and the belt at her waist made her look curved. She looked unfamiliar to herself, the kind of plain that was really fancy. She stood up, biting her lip, looking at the girl in the mirror. "Go show your grandmother that," the saleslady said, obviously pleased. Dicey walked out again, feeling foolish, feeling different. Graham just nodded, as if she had expected to see exactly what she saw. The saleslady waited for one of them to say something, then said it herself. "She's a pretty child." Dicey looked up, alarmed. "I don't know why they dress the way they do," the saleslady said to Graham, leaning confidentially over in an adult-to-adult position. Graham looked up at her. "You don't? I do." The lady's mouth tightened, and she jingled herself up straight again. "Those shoes," Graham said to Dicey, her mouth twitching. "We'll have to see what we have at home." "I like it, girl." "Me too," Dicey said. She spread her hands down the soft fabric over her hips. "But..." "We'll take the 2 then," Graham said, "and the socks." Dicey went back to change into her shorts and shirt. She felt utterly confused, but not displeased. She remembered to thank Graham, but her grandmother ignored her, except for a nod of the head. I don't know when I'll wear it, Dicey said. That's all right, Graham answered. You're not going to grow that fast anymore. I'll wait. They went down the escalator and back out into the mall. Can we go home now? Graham asked Dicey, as if Dicey were the one who thought up the errands. Dicey just grinned. Then walking beside her grandmother, she had an idea. We can't tell James we know what he did, can we? Or why? I agree, Graham said, and we should tell Sammy we know, but we have to do it indirectly, Dicey finished. It's not as if we want him to go out and get into fights, Graham agreed. They waited by the bus stop. The wind had gotten colder, like knives with edges. Dicey tried to ignore the cold in her legs. What do we want to tell him? She asked. That the way he is all right, good and bad. That Sammy is who we want him to be, not some idea that teacher has of who he should be. I didn't much care for her, but I'm not known for liking many people. That he doesn't need to change himself for us to think he's all right. That was it exactly, Dicey thought. You know about us, she said to Graham. The bus rolled up then and they climbed into it. Dicey sat by the window again. She didn't interrupt her grandmother's thoughts until they were almost outside of the city limits. Graham? She turned her face to Dicey. I understand what you mean about holding on. It is what I want to do, Dicey said. I think so, Graham remarked. And Graham? Her grandmother turned back again. We'll ask James what he thinks about Maybeth tonight, after the little kids are in bed. He'll have an idea. He'll have 7 ideas if I know him, Graham remarked. She turned away, leaving Dicey to her own thoughts. One of Dicey's thoughts was to wonder what it was that Graham was thinking so hard about. They were about halfway to Chrisfield before she got the answer. There's one other thing we have to talk about, girl. Graham's voice spoke in her ear. Dicey jerked herself back from the mental picture of the little boat newly painted next summer. What's that? You? I'm all right, Dicey said. You're on my list, Graham said with a small smile. It's not just the bra, Dicey. Graham's cheeks were pink. The bra is just the beginning, Graham said. Dicey understood. She grinned at her grandmother, who opened her mouth to protest. I'm not joking, girl. That was what her grandmother's going to say. Dicey knew it. It's okay, Graham, she said, glad that she could make this at least easier for Graham. I know about menstruating. Graham nodded and shut her mouth. Then she took a deep breath and opened it again. Dicey cut her off. And I know about sex, she assured her. Graham looked doubtful, hesitated, started to speak, stopped, started again. I'll tell you what I think, Dicey said to help Graham. You can decide if there's stuff I should know more about. She wasn't enjoying the conversation any more than Graham was. I think that even though I know how it works, sex, I don't know how it feels. Then Dicey heard what she had just said and she felt her face burn hot. Now Graham was smiling. I mean, how it feels to want to. I don't know. I'm much too young, Dicey wailed. That's all right then, Graham said. You would ask if you had any questions. Dicey nodded. Because I get the feeling you're not too pleased about growing up, Graham said. Dicey looked out over the tall marsh grasses blowing in the wind. If the wind blew, the grasses had to bend with it. She wondered how they felt about that. It's just, she said to her grandmother, I have the feeling that I know who I am, only I'm not anymore. All right, guys, that is a perfect place to stop, I think. So we will pick up with more of the book soon. I hope you're continuing to enjoy it. Definitely leave any comments down below about what you think of this segment or just the book as a whole. I really, really like Dicey. I don't know. I first read this book and the original book in the series Homecoming when I was in 5th grade. And I'm assuming I was 10 or 11 then, and I just fell in love with them, and I've read them many, many, many times since. I mean, this is my original copy that's super well loved, although well loved in the way of someone that's really careful with her things. Yeah, I've had this copy. This was copyright 1982, this edition, and it's still, I mean, you can see like a little wear on the spine, but other than that, like, oh, there are actually a few pages folded down. I did used to do that. Oh, I hate doing that now. Bookmarks are the way to go. But anyway, this is just one of those timeless books for me that it's like Judy Blume. You know, it's the type of thing, well, maybe that's what we'll do after this. I know, Loretta, you want me to read the rest of the books in the series, but to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know if I've read them all. I think there are like 7 in what they call the Tillerman cycle. This is only the 2nd, but I didn't really care for them that much, so I don't know, we'll see. I may jump over and do some Judy Blume after this, because even though they're, you know, written for children or young adults. I think as adults, they're still super, super relatable, and they bring back so many memories. So I enjoy revisiting them. In fact, I was just sharing with my therapist on Thursday that she had mentioned that they're going to be making a Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret movie, and we're both really concerned about that because it's such a beloved book for, you know, girls and, you know, teens and whatever that grew up in the era in which it was first released, which I think was the early 80s. But they actually made a movie version, a theatrical version of Tiger Eyes, which is another Judy Blume book that I love. And I think that might have been direct to video. I just was so lucky and found it in a thrift store and had no idea it even existed. And I bought it for like $1.50 and I loved it. So I'm cautiously optimistic about Margaret, as long as they can't cast any names though, or if they do in like small bit parts as like one of Margaret's grandmothers or something, but like Margaret has got to be an unknown actress, because if it's somebody that's known, I think that'll just really fuck it all up. But, and FYI, there was a made-for-TV movie of Homecoming, the first book in this series, that was on Showtime, I want to say in the early 2000s, probably. Yeah, probably early 2000s. So look for it, because it was actually quite good. And Bancroft actually played Graham, which was surprising casting for me, although it worked in the film. But anyway, yeah, just leave any comments down below about books. Yeah, tell me your favorite book from growing up. That's the question. That's what I want to know. I don't know that I could pick one, because like I said, you know, I love these two books, you know, these two Cynthia Voigt books. I love my Judy Blumes. I've been a voracious reader all my life, so I just really enjoy these books. And by the way, $2.25 was the original list price for this book back in '82. Can you imagine going into a bookstore now and finding a book that is retailing at full price for $2.25? Anyway, thanks for listening. I hope you're continuing to enjoy, and we'll continue to enjoy. We're only this far into the book, so we've got quite a ways to go. We're not even halfway yet, and there's some really serious, deep shit that's coming up, so I hope you'll stay tuned. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll be back soon with more stuff. Bye.